My name's Philip Johnson, and I've been driving 18-wheelers across America for nearly 20 years. There's something about the open road that gets into your blood. The endless horizon, the changing landscapes, the freedom. Most folks don't understand why a man would choose to spend his life in a cab, sleeping at truck stops and eating diner food. But for me, the highway's been more of a home than any house I've ever lived in. It was early March 2020, and the world was just starting to whisper about some virus overseas. Nobody knew what was coming, least of all me. I was hauling a load of household appliances from Chicago to Los Angeles, taking the scenic route down Old Route 66. My dispatcher, Marge, had given me an extra day on this run, a rare gift in the trucking business where time is literally money. "Take the mother road," she'd said over the crackling phone line. "You've been pushing too hard lately, Phil. Enjoy the drive for once." My rig, a midnight blue Peterbilt I call Midnight Rider, was running smooth as silk that morning. I just passed through Kingman, Arizona, with the Hualapai Mountains in my rear view and miles of desert stretching ahead. The radio was playing some classic Creedence as I sipped my third coffee of the day, the sun climbing higher in a cloudless sky. This stretch of Route 66 is desolate, beautiful in that stark, unforgiving way the desert has, but empty of almost everything except scrub brush, cacti, and the occasional roadside attraction trying to lure tourists with promises of authentic Americana. I hadn't passed another vehicle in over 30 minutes when I first spotted them. Two dogs, maybe half a mile ahead, right at the edge of the road. From a distance, they looked like smudges of brown and black against the pale desert soil. As I got closer, I could see they were moving back and forth, agitated-like. My first thought was they might be strays, abandoned by some heartless bastard who couldn't be bothered to drop them at a shelter. I've always had a soft spot for dogs. Growing up on a farm in Nebraska, we always had at least 3 or 4 mutts running around. My ex-wife used to say I cared more about our old retriever Buddy than I did about her. She wasn't entirely wrong. I eased off the accelerator, slowing Midnight Rider as I approached. The dogs, medium-sized mutts with the distinctive look of animals that came from a long line of a little bit of everything, were running in circles, then darting towards something off the shoulder of the road, then back to the pavement. They weren't just wandering, they were trying to get someone's attention. Mine, as it turned out. I pulled onto the shoulder, gravel crunching under my tires. The dogs immediately ran toward my truck, barking frantically, then back to whatever had them so worked up, about 20 yards from the road. I put on my hazards, though there wasn't another soul in sight, and climbed down from the cab. "Hey there, fellas," I called, approaching cautiously. You never know with strange dogs. "What's got you all riled up?" They weren't aggressive, just desperate. One was mostly brown with a white chest, the other black and tan, with one ear that stood up and another that flopped over. Both were thin but not starving, with worn leather collars but no tags. Someone had owned these dogs, and not too long ago. The brown one ran to me, barking, then back toward the desert, a classic lassie-come-quick move if I'd ever seen one. And despite every horror movie I'd ever watched telling me not to follow strange animals into the desert, that's exactly what I did. The dogs led me away from the road, weaving between creosote bushes and prickly pear cacti. The ground was hard-packed dirt with loose rocks that shifted under my boots. About 20 yards in, I saw what had the dogs so agitated. A hole in the ground maybe 6 feet across that definitely wasn't natural. It was too perfectly circular, the edges too clean. It looked like someone had taken a giant cookie cutter to the desert floor. But what really caught my attention was the metal ladder leading down into darkness. "What the hell?" I muttered, approaching cautiously. The dogs ran to the edge of the hole, barking down into it. I pulled out my phone and switched on the flashlight, shining it into the darkness. The beam revealed a tunnel extending down at least 15 feet before curving out of sight. This wasn't some natural sinkhole or abandoned well. Someone had dug this, and recently. I knelt at the edge, careful not to get too close. "Hello?" I called down. "Anybody down there?" My voice echoed slightly, but there was no response. The brown dog whined and pawed at the ground near the hole. That's when I noticed the backpack, dusty and sun-faded, partially hidden under a creosote bush a few feet from the hole. I picked it up, unzipping the main compartment. Inside was a water bottle, a few protein bars, a small first aid kit, and a notebook. I flipped open the notebook, finding pages of densely written notes and diagrams. The handwriting was tight and precise, but the content made little sense to me. Calculations, strange symbols, and phrases like temporal displacement field and non-terrestrial mineral composition. "What the hell have you boys gotten me into?" I asked the dogs, who were still focused intently on the hole. That's when I heard it, a faint call for help coming from below. My first instinct was to climb down that ladder and see who needed help, but 20 years on the road teaches you caution. I'd seen enough strange things in remote places to know that sometimes situations aren't what they seem, and a mysterious tunnel in the middle of the Arizona desert definitely qualified as suspicious. I backed away from the hole and pulled out my phone again, dialing 911. The call connected after a few seconds. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher's voice was clear despite my being in the middle of nowhere. My name's Philip Johnson. I'm a truck driver on Route 66, about 30 miles east of Kingman. I found some kind of tunnel in the desert. There's someone down there calling for help. A tunnel, sir? Yes, ma'am. A man-made tunnel with a metal ladder going down. I can hear someone calling for help, but I don't know what's down there. Are you in any immediate danger, Mr. Johnson? I don't think so. I'm standing a safe distance away. There are 2 dogs here that led me to the hole. They seem to belong to whoever's down there. Can you provide exact coordinates of your location? I read off the GPS coordinates from my phone. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I'm dispatching Highway Patrol and Emergency Services to your location. They should be there within 25 minutes. Please remain at a safe distance from the tunnel entrance. Will do. After hanging up, I looked back at the hole. The dogs were still pacing anxiously around it. The voice from below called out again, louder this time. Hello? Is someone up there? Please, we need help. There was more than one person down there. Help is coming, I shouted back. Police and ambulance are on the way. Thank God, the voice replied, sounding relieved but strained. We've been down here for days. The ladder broke, and we can't climb out. I moved closer to the hole, still keeping a safe distance from the edge. How many of you are down there? 3 of us, the voice called back. Please, we're running out of water. I looked at the water bottle I'd found in the backpack. 1 bottle wouldn't go far among 3 people, but it was better than nothing. I'm going to drop down a water bottle, I called. Stand back from the opening. I carefully approached the edge and dropped the bottle down, watching as it disappeared into the darkness. I heard a faint, "Got it," from below. The black and tan dog suddenly pressed against my leg, whining softly. I reached down to pat its head, feeling the tension in its body. These weren't just random strays. They were loyal companions waiting for their people to emerge from that hole. What I couldn't figure out was what anyone would be doing digging a tunnel in the middle of the desert in the first place. Gold mining, drug smuggling, some kind of doomsday prepper bunker. Whatever it was, I had a feeling things were about to get a whole lot stranger. I backed away from the hole, suddenly questioning my decision to get involved. I'm a truck driver, not a rescue worker or a cop. I had a schedule to keep, deliveries that people were counting on. The smart play would be to wait in my truck until the authorities arrived, then get back on the road and leave this weird situation behind. Sir, are you still there? The voice from the hole sounded desperate. Yeah, I'm here, I called back, though I'd retreated several yards. Help is on the way, just hang tight. I checked my watch. The dispatcher said 25 minutes, but out here in the desert, response times were always optimistic. It could be an hour before anyone showed up. The brown dog trotted over to me, looking up with eyes that seemed too intelligent, too knowing. He nudged my hand with his nose, then turned back toward the hole. I know, buddy, I said. Your people are down there. But there's professionals coming who know how to handle this kind of thing. The dog whined, unconvinced by my reasoning. I walked back to my truck, the dogs following close behind. Opening the cab, I grabbed my own water jug and a bag of beef jerky I'd been saving for later. The least I could do was make sure these loyal mutts had something to eat and drink while we waited. I poured some water into my cupped hand, and both dogs lapped it up eagerly. They wolfed down the jerky like they hadn't eaten in days, which might have been the case. Leaning against my truck, I flipped through the notebook I'd found again. Most of it was gibberish to me. Complex equations, diagrams that looked like geological cross-sections, and strange symbols I couldn't make heads or tails of. But there were also journal entries scattered throughout, dated entries that told a bizarre story. March 15th, 2019, we've finally pinpointed the location. The readings are off the charts. Whatever crashed here in 1947 left a signature that's still detectable if you know what to look for. We'll begin excavation tomorrow. 1947, that was the year of Roswell. I'd never been much for conspiracy theories, but even I knew about the supposed UFO crash in New Mexico. But this wasn't New Mexico. This was Arizona. I flipped forward a few pages. April 30th, 2019. 2 months of digging and nothing but dirt and rocks. Sampson and Rivera are getting discouraged, but the readings don't lie. It's here, buried deep. We just have to keep going. July 22nd, 2019. Breakthrough. We've found a material unlike anything I've ever seen. Black, metallic, but with properties that defy conventional physics. It absorbs light, actually absorbs it, and the energy readings are impossible. This could change everything. The entries continued, becoming increasingly technical and, frankly, increasingly unhinged sounding. Talk of non-terrestrial origin and technology centuries beyond our understanding. The final entry was dated just a week ago. February 25th, 2020. We're close to the main chamber. The dogs sense it too. They won't go near the tunnel entrance anymore. Something down there is affecting the local electromagnetic field. Our equipment keeps malfunctioning, but we're too close to stop now. Whatever the visitors left behind, we're about to find it. Visitors. The word sent a chill down my spine, despite the desert heat. I looked back at the hole, then at my watch again. 20 minutes had passed, and there was still no sign of the authorities. The dogs had finished eating and were back at the hole, barking occasionally as if encouraging their owners to climb out. Part of me, the sensible, self-preserving part, was screaming to get back in my truck and drive away. Leave this whole bizarre situation for someone else to deal with. I had no obligation to these people, whoever they were. Digging mysterious tunnels in the desert, chasing conspiracy theories about alien technology. They'd made their choices. But another part of me, the part that couldn't ignore a stray dog or drive past a broken-down car without stopping, knew I wasn't going anywhere. I'd called for help, and now I was committed to seeing this through. "Damn it," I muttered, pushing off from the truck. The dogs perked up as I approached the hole again, as if they knew I'd made a decision. As I stood contemplating my next move, the rumble of an approaching vehicle caught my attention. I turned, expecting to see a police cruiser or ambulance, but instead, an ancient Jeep Wagoneer was bouncing across the desert toward me, kicking up a plume of dust in its wake. The vehicle pulled up beside my truck, and a weathered old man stepped out. He was tall and lean, with skin tanned to leather by decades in the sun, a shock of white hair, and a neatly trimmed beard. He wore faded jeans, a chambray shirt, and a battered straw cowboy hat. He looked to be in his 70s, but moved with the ease of someone 20 years younger. "Trouble?" he called, walking toward me with a slight limp. "You could say that," I replied cautiously. "I've called the police. They're on their way." He nodded, seemingly unsurprised. "Name's Ray B. Gay. Got a place about 5 miles from here." He gestured vaguely toward the horizon. "Saw your rig from my back ridge. Not many trucks stop on this stretch." The dogs, surprisingly, greeted the old man like an old friend, tails wagging as they circled his legs. "You know these dogs?" I asked. "Seen 'em around," he said, bending to scratch behind their ears, belong to those folks who've been digging out here. Scientists, they said, studying the geology. His tone made it clear he didn't believe that explanation for a second. There's people trapped down there, I explained, pointing to the hole. 3 of them, they say. I called 911 about half an hour ago. Ray nodded, unsurprised. Been watching these folks for months. Told them they were asking for trouble, digging where they shouldn't. You know what they're looking for? The old man gave me a long, appraising look. What's your name, driver? Philip Johnson. Well, Philip Johnson, let me ask you something. You believe we're alone in this universe? The question caught me off guard. I never gave it much thought. Ray chuckled. That's an honest answer, at least. He looked toward the hole. This land has stories, Mr. Johnson, old stories. My people, the Hualapai, have lived here for thousands of years. We have tales of star visitors who came long ago. I thought of the notebook in my pocket with its talk of visitors and non-terrestrial materials. You're saying they're looking for aliens. I'm saying there are things in this world that defy simple explanation. Ray adjusted his hat against the sun. These scientists, they came asking questions last year, wanted to know about the old stories, about a light that fell from the sky many generations ago. I told them what I knew, warned them that some things are better left undisturbed. But they didn't listen. People rarely do, Ray shrugged, especially when they think there's something to be gained, knowledge, fame, money. A call echoed up from the hole. Hello? Is anyone still there? I moved closer to the edge. We're here. Help is coming. Ray joined me, peering down into the darkness. How long they been down there? They said a few days. The ladder broke. The old man nodded thoughtfully. Convenient timing for a ladder to break just when they found what they were looking for. You think they found something? Something real? Oh, they found something all right. Ray's expression was grim. Can feel it in the air, like before a lightning storm, when everything gets still and heavy. Now that he mentioned it, there was something odd about the atmosphere around the hole. A subtle vibration, almost below the threshold of hearing, more felt than heard. The police should be here soon, I said, checking my watch again. Police, Ray echoed, shaking his head. They won't know what to make of this. Some things are beyond their training. What would you suggest then? Ray fixed me with a penetrating stare. These people need help, regardless of what foolishness they've gotten themselves into. I've got rope in my Jeep, strong enough to pull them out. You want to pull them out before the authorities arrive? I want to make sure they get out at all. Ray's voice had an ominous edge. Sometimes help comes too late. I weighed my options. The sensible thing would be to wait for the professionals. But something in the old man's manner, the urgency beneath his calm exterior, made me think he knew more than he was saying. These scientists, I asked, what exactly do you think they found down there? Ray looked toward the horizon, where heat waves distorted the view. There's a reason some things get buried, Mr. Johnson. Nature has a way of hiding what doesn't belong. With that cryptic statement, he turned and walked back to his Jeep. The dogs followed him, as if they too sensed he was someone to be trusted. I found myself trailing behind, drawn by the old man's quiet authority and the promise of answers to the questions that were piling up in my mind. Whatever was happening here in this desolate stretch of desert, Ray Begay seemed to understand it in a way I didn't, and right now, understanding felt like something I desperately needed. Ray returned from his Jeep, carrying a coil of thick rope and a powerful flashlight. The dogs circled excitedly as we walked back to the hole, sensing that a rescue attempt was imminent. You sure about this? I asked, eyeing the dark opening with growing apprehension. The dispatcher said to wait. Sometimes waiting is the most dangerous thing you can do, Ray replied, kneeling to test the ground around the hole's edge. This soil is stable enough. We'll anchor the rope to your truck's tow hitch. I hesitated, torn between common sense and the strange urgency I felt. What if there's toxic gas down there, or the tunnel collapses? Ray gave me a sidelong glance. You a religious man, Mr. Johnson. Not particularly. But you believe in right and wrong. Of course. Then you already know what you need to do. He handed me the rope. Help me secure this. Something about his calm certainty pushed me past my hesitation. I took the rope and walked back to my truck, threading it through the tow hitch and tying it with the trucker's hitch I'd used thousands of times to secure loads. Ray tested my knot, nodded approvingly, and played out the rope back to the hole. "Hello down there," he called. "We're sending down a rope. Can you reach it?" "Yes," came the reply, sounding stronger now that rescue was at hand. "Thank God. We thought everyone had left." Ray tied a series of knots along the rope to provide handholds. "One at a time," he instructed. "Weakest first." We lowered the rope into the darkness. After a minute of shuffling and muffled conversation from below, the rope went taut. "She's coming up!" a voice called. Ray and I braced ourselves, holding the rope steady as someone began to climb. The dogs paced anxiously, occasionally peering over the edge. A few minutes later, hands appeared at the rim of the hole, followed by the dirt-streaked face of a young woman. She looked to be in her early 30s, with short dark hair and wire-rimmed glasses that sat askew on her nose. Her clothes, cargo pants, and a once-white button-up field shirt were filthy and torn. Ray and I each grabbed an arm, hauling her onto solid ground. She collapsed immediately, gasping for breath. The brown dog rushed to her, whining and licking her face. "Samson," she croaked, wrapping her arms around the dog. "Good boy." "Take it easy," I advised, offering her my canteen. "You're safe now." She drank greedily, water spilling down her chin. When she finally lowered the canteen, her eyes darted between Ray and me, with a mixture of gratitude and wariness. "Dr. Elena Rivera," she introduced herself between breaths. "Thank you for the rescue." "Philip Johnson," I replied. "And this is Ray Begay." Recognition flashed in her eyes at Ray's name. "Mr. Begay, I remember. You spoke with Dr. Chambers last year." Ray nodded but said nothing, already repositioning the rope for the next climber. "What happened down there?" I asked. "How did you get trapped?" Dr. Rivera's expression clouded. "The ladder, it just gave way. We've been using it for months without issue, and suddenly..." She shook her head. "It doesn't make sense." "Your colleagues," Ray prompted. "They're coming." "Yes, Dr. Chambers is helping Marcus. He's injured." As if on cue, a strained voice called up from below. "Ready for the next one." The process repeated, more slowly this time. When the second figure reached the top, I saw why. It was a young man, maybe mid-20s, with a makeshift bandage wrapped around his head, blood seeping through. The black and tan dog greeted him enthusiastically. "Easy, Highway," the young man murmured, patting the dog weakly. "Marcus Delgado, our grad student," Dr. Rivera explained as we helped him clear of the hole. Marcus looked even worse than Dr. Rivera, dehydrated, exhausted, and clearly suffering from a head injury. His eyes couldn't seem to focus properly, and he swayed even while sitting. "What happened to your head?" I asked, examining the crude bandage. "Fell when the ladder broke," he mumbled. "Hit something on the way down." Ray was already lowering the rope for the final climber. "Dr. Chambers," he called. "Rope secure." There was no immediate response. "James?" Dr. Rivera called, suddenly alert. "James, answer me." Silence stretched for several seconds before a reply finally came, the voice noticeably strained. "Coming, just securing our findings." Dr. Rivera and Marcus exchanged a look I couldn't interpret. "Leave it, James," Dr. Rivera shouted, an edge of panic in her voice. "Just come up." More silence, then the rope went taut again. We waited, the atmosphere growing tenser by the second. Even the dogs seemed to sense it, their earlier excitement replaced by nervous vigilance. Finally, a third figure emerged from the hole, a tall, lean man in his 50s, with a silver-streaked beard and the intense eyes of someone who'd seen something that had changed him forever. Unlike his colleagues, Dr. James Chambers didn't appear relieved to reach the surface. Instead, he clutched a canvas bag to his chest, his knuckles white with the force of his grip. "You shouldn't have involved others, Elena," he said, ignoring Ray and me completely. His voice was eerily calm, at odds with his wild-eyed appearance. "We were dying down there, James," she replied. "What choice did we have?" Dr. Chambers finally seemed to notice Ray, and his expression hardened. "Mr. Begay, I should have known you'd interfere." "I warned you," Ray said simply. "A year ago I warned you." "And you were wrong," Chambers replied, a fevered intensity in his eyes. "We found it. Exactly where the legends said it would be. Proof that we're not alone, that we've never been alone." He clutched the canvas bag tighter. "Do you have any idea what this means? For science? For humanity?" Ray's expression remained impassive. "I know what it means for those who disturb what should remain hidden." The wail of sirens in the distance broke the tense standoff. Dr. Chambers' head snapped toward the sound, his expression darkening. "You called the authorities?" he demanded, glaring at me. "Of course I did," I replied, standing my ground. "I found 2 dogs barking at a hole with people trapped inside. What did you expect me to do?" "We need to leave," Chambers said to his colleagues. "Now, before they arrive." Dr. Rivera shook her head. "James, we need medical attention. Marcus has a concussion, and we're all dehydrated. We've been trapped for days." 3 days, I corrected, remembering the notebook's final entry date. "According to your journal." Chambers' eyes narrowed. "You read my journal?" I patted my pocket where the notebook rested. "Found it by the hole. Makes for interesting reading. Visitors, non-terrestrial materials, technology centuries beyond our understanding." "Give that to me," Chambers demanded, taking a step toward me. Ray moved between us. "The authorities will want to see it, I imagine, along with whatever's in that bag you're clutching so tightly." Chambers backed away, his eyes darting between us and the approaching sirens. The canvas bag never left his grip. "You don't understand what's at stake," he said, his voice dropping to an urgent whisper. "What we found down there, it changes everything. Our understanding of physics, of history, of humanity's place in the universe." "What exactly did you find?" I asked, curiosity overcoming my better judgment. Before Chambers could answer, Marcus suddenly pitched forward, vomiting into the dirt. Dr. Rivera rushed to his side. "He needs a hospital, James," she insisted. "This isn't a debate." The sirens were getting closer. I could now see dust clouds on the highway where emergency vehicles were approaching. "Fine," Chambers relented. "We'll get medical attention, but we say nothing about what we found. Nothing. Do you understand?" Dr. Rivera nodded reluctantly, supporting the semi-conscious Marcus. Ray watched this exchange with the patient observation of someone who'd seen human drama play out countless times before. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but carried an unmistakable warning. "The truth has a way of surfacing, Dr. Chambers, like water in the desert. You can bury it, but it finds a path to the light." Chambers ignored him, turning to me instead. "Mr. Johnson, was it? You seem like a practical man, a man who understands the value of discretion." "Meaning?" "Meaning there could be compensation for your cooperation. Your silence about certain aspects of what you've witnessed today." I stared at him, incredulous. "Are you trying to bribe me?" "I'm offering fair payment for your inconvenience," he replied smoothly. "Say $10,000. For simply forgetting about that notebook and anything unusual you might have heard." The offer was tempting, more than tempting. 10 grand was nearly 3 months' salary for me, but something felt deeply wrong about the whole situation. "What's in the bag, Dr. Chambers?" I asked instead of answering his proposition. His grip tightened reflexively. "Research materials, soil samples, nothing that would interest a layman." "Then you won't mind showing the police when they arrive?" His face hardened. "I had hoped for your cooperation, Mr. Johnson." 2 police cruisers and an ambulance appeared on the highway, pulling onto the shoulder near my truck. 4 officers emerged, hands resting cautiously on their holstered weapons as they surveyed the strange scene. 3 filthy, exhausted people, 2 excited dogs, an elderly Native American man, and me, a truck driver who'd somehow gotten mixed up in whatever this was. "Over here," I called, waving to the officers. As they approached, I noticed Dr. Chambers subtly passing the canvas bag to Dr. Rivera, who tucked it into a larger backpack at her feet. The movement was smooth, practiced. They'd clearly worked together for a long time. "What's the situation here?" the lead officer asked, a middle-aged man with a desert-weathered face and the name Sergeant Wilcox on his badge. "I found these people trapped in that hole," I explained, pointing. "Called it in about an hour ago." Sergeant Wilcox peered at the tunnel entrance. "What exactly were you folks doing digging a hole in the middle of BLM land?" "Geological research," Chambers answered smoothly. "We have permits." He reached for his back pocket, then frowned. "Which were in my pack. That I left below when the ladder broke." "Convenient," Ray murmured, just loud enough for me to hear. The paramedics were already attending to Marcus, whose condition was visibly deteriorating. They quickly loaded him into the ambulance, with Dr. Rivera insisting on accompanying him. The backpack, with Chambers' mysterious bag inside, went with them. As the ambulance pulled away, Sergeant Wilcox continued his questioning. "So, you're saying this was an authorized research expedition that experienced an accident?" "Exactly," Chambers confirmed. "A regrettable equipment failure. We're just grateful this truck driver heard our calls for help." Wilcox turned to me. "And you just happened to be passing by?" "The dogs caught my attention," I explained. "They were running back and forth by the road, barking, led me straight to the hole." "Loyal animals," Ray added. "Wouldn't leave their people." Wilcox nodded, making notes. "We'll need statements from all of you, and I'll need to verify those permits, Dr. Chambers." "Of course," Chambers agreed smoothly. "Once I've been checked out medically, I'll provide everything you need." I could tell Wilcox wasn't entirely satisfied, but with one person already headed to the hospital in serious condition, immediate medical concerns were taking priority over suspicious circumstances. "Mr. Johnson, we'll need you to come to the station in Kingman to make a formal statement," Wilcox informed me. I nodded, though inwardly I groaned at the delay to my schedule. "Whatever you need, officer." As the police began securing the scene with yellow tape, Ray pulled me aside. "Be careful what you say," he warned quietly, "and watch that notebook. It may be more valuable than you realize." "You think Chambers was serious about that bribe?" Ray's weathered face was grave. "I think what they found down there is worth far more than $10,000 to the right people." "What do you think it is?" He glanced toward the hole, now surrounded by officers taking photographs. "Something not of this world, Mr. Johnson. Something that should have stayed buried." The Kingman police station was a squat beige building that looked like it had been designed by someone with a pathological fear of architectural interest. I'd been sitting in an interview room for over an hour, going over my statement with a detective named Morales, a sharp-eyed woman with short salt-and-pepper hair and the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who'd heard every lie in the book. "So you're telling me you just stopped because you saw dogs by the road?" she asked, for what felt like the 10th time. "That's right," I confirmed, trying to keep the irritation from my voice. "I've always had a soft spot for strays, thought they might need water or food. And then they led you to this hole in the ground." "Yes, where 3 scientists had been trapped for 3 days. That's what they told me." Detective Morales tapped her pen against her notepad. "And one of them offered you money to keep quiet about what, exactly?" I hesitated. This was the tricky part. "About the notebook I found, and whatever they discovered down there." "Which was?" "I don't know. They never said specifically, but Dr. Chambers was very protective of a canvas bag he brought up with him." Morales leaned forward. "Mr. Johnson, I need you to be completely honest with me. Did you see what was in that bag?" "No, ma'am." "Do you still have the notebook?" I nodded, reaching into my jacket pocket and producing Dr. Chambers' journal. I debated whether to hand it over, but ultimately decided that withholding evidence would only make me look suspicious. Morales took it, flipping through the pages with increasing interest. Her eyebrows rose as she encountered the more outlandish entries. "Non-terrestrial materials," she read aloud. "Technology centuries beyond our understanding?" She looked up at me. You realize this sounds like science fiction. I'm just telling you what I found, I said with a shrug. Make of it what you will. She closed the notebook. Mr. Johnson, are you familiar with the term UFO enthusiasts? You think they're just some kind of alien hunters? I asked. What I think, she replied carefully, is that we have 3 people with advanced degrees who spent a year digging a hole in the desert based on questionable theories. One has a serious head injury, and the other 2 are being treated for dehydration and exhaustion at Kingman Regional Medical Center. She tapped the notebook. People believe all sorts of things, Mr. Johnson. Doesn't make them true. I thought about Ray's warnings, about the strange intensity in Chambers' eyes, about the feeling of wrongness that had permeated the air around that hole. Maybe, I conceded. But why offer me $10,000 to keep quiet about a crackpot theory? That gave her pause. Good question. I intend to ask Dr. Chambers about that myself. She stood up. We're done for now. Thank you for your cooperation. Can I go? I've got a delivery schedule to keep. Not just yet. There's someone else who wants to speak with you. Before I could ask who, she left the room, closing the door behind her. I sat there for another 15 minutes, checking my watch repeatedly and calculating how far behind schedule I was falling. Marge would understand once I explained, but my customer in LA might not be so forgiving. Finally, the door opened again, revealing a tall, broad-shouldered man in a dark suit that practically screamed, "Government agent." He had close-cropped hair, a clean-shaven face with angular features, and the kind of bland good looks that would blend into any crowd. "Mr. Johnson," he said, closing the door and taking the seat across from me. "I'm Special Agent Thomas Ward, FBI." He didn't offer to shake hands, and his smile didn't reach his eyes. "FBI?" I echoed, my unease growing. "What's the FBI's interest in some scientists stuck in a hole?" "That's what I'm hoping you can help me understand," Ward replied, placing a thin file folder on the table between us. "You see, Dr. James Chambers and his team aren't just any scientists. Until 18 months ago, they were employed by a private research company with several classified government contracts." He opened the folder, revealing photographs of Chambers, Rivera, and Delgado in lab coats, standing in front of a sleek, corporate building. "Quantum Horizons Technologies," Ward continued, specializing in advanced materials research. Dr. Chambers was their director of special projects until he abruptly resigned, taking his core team with him. Shortly after, certain proprietary equipment went missing. You think they stole something? We know they did. What we don't know is why they've spent the last year digging in the Arizona desert. Ward's eyes narrowed slightly. Or what they might have found. I shifted uncomfortably in my chair. "Look, I told everything I know to Detective Morales. I'm just a truck driver who stopped to help some dogs. And yet Dr. Chambers offered you $10,000 for your silence." Ward's tone was conversational, but his eyes were cold. "That's a substantial sum for a truck driver's annual salary." 3 months' salary, I corrected, irritated by his assumption. "And I didn't take it." "Admirable." Ward didn't sound impressed. "The notebook you found has been quite illuminating. Dr. Chambers appears to believe he discovered materials of extraterrestrial origin." He watched my reaction carefully. I kept my expression neutral. "Like Detective Morales said, people believe all sorts of things." "Indeed they do." Ward closed the folder. "Here's my concern, Mr. Johnson. When we searched the tunnel this afternoon, we found sophisticated equipment, evidence of extensive excavation, but no unusual materials, nothing that matches the descriptions in Chambers' journal. Maybe he was delusional, or lying. Or," Ward countered, "whatever they found is now missing. Possibly in a canvas bag that was transferred to a backpack and taken in an ambulance to Kingman Regional Medical Center." I remembered the smooth handoff between Chambers and Rivera. "You think they still have it?" "I think," Ward said carefully, "that if they found something they believed valuable enough to spend a year digging for, they wouldn't leave it behind, even in an emergency." He leaned forward. "Mr. Johnson, I need your help. Dr. Chambers and Dr. Rivera checked themselves out of the hospital against medical advice 2 hours ago. They've disappeared, along with whatever they brought up from that hole. What about the grad student, Marcus? Still hospitalized, serious concussion, under observation, and not talking." I frowned. "What exactly do you want from me? You're the only person they've interacted with who isn't part of their team. They might contact you, especially if they believe you have information they need." "Like the notebook?" Ward nodded. "Precisely, which is why, with your permission, we'd like to place a trace on your phone and have you continue your route as planned." "You want to use me as bait," I translated. "I want to recover potentially sensitive materials before they can be sold or distributed to unknown parties," Ward corrected. "This is a matter of national security, Mr. Johnson." I thought about it. On one hand, I wanted nothing more than to get back on the road and leave this whole bizarre situation behind me. On the other, if Chambers and Rivera had found something genuinely dangerous. "What about Ray Begay?" I asked. He seemed to know more about this situation than he was letting on. Something flickered across Ward's face. Recognition or perhaps concern. "Mr. Begay has been interviewed. He's a local character with a reputation for colorful stories, not a reliable source." That dismissal felt wrong. Ray had been anything but a colorful storyteller. His warnings had been measured, specific, and delivered with the gravity of someone who knew exactly what he was talking about. "So what happens now?" I asked. "You continue your delivery to Los Angeles," Ward explained. "Act normally. If Chambers or Rivera contact you, engage them. Find out what they want, where they are. Don't mention our conversation. And if they don't contact me," Ward smiled thinly, "then you've done your civic duty by cooperating, and you can forget this ever happened." Somehow, I doubted it would be that simple. I was back on the road by sunset, Midnight Rider's engine rumbling steadily as I headed west toward California. The FBI had placed a trace on my phone and given me a direct number to call if Chambers or Rivera made contact. Agent Ward had made it very clear that I was not to take any independent action, just report and continue my route. The desert landscape was transforming as the sun sank toward the horizon, the harsh daylight softening into the purple and gold hues of dusk. Normally, I'd appreciate the view, maybe even pull over to watch the sunset. But today, my mind was too preoccupied with underground tunnels, mysterious discoveries, and scientists on the run. I kept replaying the events in my head, looking for details I might have missed. The dog's desperate barking, the perfectly circular hole, the strange vibration in the air, Chambers' fevered eyes as he clutched that canvas bag, Ray Begay's warnings. Something wasn't adding up. If this was just about stolen corporate equipment or even some archaeological find, why the intense secrecy? Why the talk of visitors and technology centuries beyond our understanding? My phone rang, startling me from my thoughts. The display showed an unknown number. I hit the speaker button. "Hello, Mr. Johnson." It was Dr. Rivera's voice, tense and hushed. "Are you alone?" I glanced at my phone, knowing the FBI was likely already tracing the call. "Just me and the highway." "Good. Listen carefully. I don't have much time. They're looking for us." "Who? The police?" "Not just the police." Her voice dropped even lower. "Did you give them James's notebook?" I hesitated, remembering Ward's instructions to engage and gather information. "Yes. The detective asked for it." She swore under her breath. "That complicates things. Mr. Johnson, you need to be careful. What we found, it's not what we expected. James thinks it's the discovery of the century, but I'm not so sure anymore." "What did you find?" I asked, trying to keep her talking. "I can't explain over the phone. We need to meet. There's a rest stop at mile marker 23 on Route 66, just before the California border. Can you meet us there in 2 hours?" I checked the time. That would put me at the rest stop around 9 p.m. I can do that. Come alone, she insisted, and watch for surveillance. These people, they have resources. What people, Dr. Rivera? The FBI? There was a pause. They told you they were FBI. Agent Ward, tall guy, government suit, about as expressive as a brick wall. She laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. Thomas Ward isn't FBI, Mr. Johnson. He works for a private security firm that handles Quantum Horizon's more sensitive matters. That revelation sent a chill through me. He said this was a matter of national security. I'm sure he did. It's his favorite line. Her voice grew urgent. Listen to me. What we found doesn't belong to Quantum Horizons or the government or anyone else. It doesn't belong on this planet at all. And it's dangerous, more dangerous than James wants to admit. Then why take it? I asked. Why not leave it buried? Because if we didn't take it, they would. And at least we understand what it might be capable of. She paused. Mile marker 23. 2 hours. Come alone or don't come at all. The line went dead. I drove in silence for several minutes, processing what I'd just heard. If Rivera was telling the truth, then Ward had lied about being FBI. But that didn't necessarily mean Rivera was being honest either. For all I knew, both sides were feeding me partial truths to serve their own agendas. My phone rang again. This time, it was Ward. Mr. Johnson, he said without preamble. We traced the call. Did Rivera arrange a meeting? So much for the confidentiality of my cooperation. Rest stop at mile marker 23 in 2 hours. Excellent. Continue as planned. We'll have agents in position, but they'll stay out of sight. Your safety is our priority. Is it? I asked, unable to help myself. Because Dr. Rivera seems to think you're not actually FBI. There was a brief silence. Dr. Rivera is under considerable stress and likely suffering from paranoid delusions. A common side effect of prolonged isolation and dehydration. So you are FBI. Mr. Johnson, Ward's voice hardened. Your role here is to assist in the recovery of stolen materials, not to question the authority of federal agents. Are we clear? Crystal, I replied, matching his tone. After he hung up, I found myself gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles had turned white. I was caught between two parties who both seemed to be lying, both wanted something I didn't fully understand, and neither seemed particularly concerned about my well-being beyond my usefulness to their goals. As the miles rolled by, I found myself thinking about Ray Bigay again. The old man had been dismissed by both the local police and Ward, yet he'd been the only person who seemed genuinely concerned about the implications of what had been found. His warnings hadn't been about property rights or national security, but about disturbing things that should remain hidden. On impulse, I pulled over at the next gas station and used the payphone instead of my cell. Directory assistance connected me to R. Bigay on the outskirts of Kingman. The phone rang 4 times before a familiar voice answered. Mr. Bigay, I said. It's Philip Johnson, the truck driver from this morning. Mr. Johnson. He didn't sound surprised to hear from me. I've been expecting your call. You have? The wheels are in motion now, he said cryptically. Once certain things are unearthed, they cannot be simply reburied. Dr. Rivera wants to meet me, I explained. And the man claiming to be FBI is tracking my phone. I don't know who to trust. Trust your instincts, Ray advised. They've served you well so far. My instincts are telling me to drive straight to LA and forget any of this ever happened. Ray chuckled. A wise instinct. But I suspect you won't follow it. He was right, despite every rational part of my brain screaming at me to stay out of whatever this was. I couldn't just walk away. Not now. What should I do? I asked. Be careful at the rest stop, Ray said, his voice suddenly serious. What they found has a way of influencing those who come in contact with it, changing them. What is it? A piece of something that fell from the sky generations ago. My people called it the star that changed the land. Where it touched the earth, strange things grew. Animals avoided the area. Those who ventured too close came back different, if they came back at all. A chill ran down my spine despite the warm evening. You're saying it's actually alien. I'm saying it doesn't belong here, Ray corrected, and its power doesn't come without a price. Before I could ask more questions, he continued, the rest stop you mentioned. It's not safe. There's an abandoned trading post 3 miles before it, on the north side of the road, the old Turquoise Trail post. If you truly want answers, meet them there instead. How do I know this isn't a trap? You don't, Ray admitted. But consider who has been honest with you so far, and who has not. After hanging up, I sat in my truck for several long minutes, weighing my options. The sensible choice was to call Ward, tell him about the change in plans, and let the authorities, whoever they really were, handle the situation. Instead, I found myself pulling back onto Route 66, continuing west toward the California border. But as I drove, I kept my eyes peeled for an abandoned trading post called Turquoise Trail. Whatever was in that canvas bag, whatever had been buried in the desert for generations, I was now irrevocably connected to its discovery. And something told me that before this night was over, I'd see it for myself, for better or worse. The Turquoise Trail trading post had clearly been abandoned for decades. Its adobe walls were crumbling. The once bright blue trim faded to a ghostly grey in the moonlight. I pulled Midnight Rider off the road, cutting the headlights but leaving the engine idling. The clock on my dashboard read 8:37 p.m., still nearly half an hour before the originally planned meeting time. Movement caught my eye, headlights approaching from the east. The vehicle pulled off the road about 100 yards away. I recognized Chambers' tall silhouette and Rivera's smaller frame as they cautiously approached. "How did you know to come here?" Rivera asked suspiciously. "Ray Begay suggested it might be safer than the rest stop." "Ward is dangerous," Rivera confirmed. "More dangerous than you realize." "Then let's not waste time," I said. "What exactly did you find down there?" Chambers and Rivera exchanged a look. After a moment, Chambers nodded. "Show him," he said. Rivera led us into the abandoned trading post. Chambers set the backpack down carefully and removed the canvas bag. With reverent movements, he loosened the drawstring and reached inside. What he withdrew made my breath catch. It was a smooth, black object about the size of a softball, with an irregular, almost organic shape. Its surface seemed to shift and flow, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. It wasn't quite solid, wasn't quite liquid, something in between that defied categorization. "What is it?" I whispered, unable to look away. "We believe it's a fragment of advanced technology, non-terrestrial in origin," Rivera explained. "You mean alien?" "Yes," Chambers said simply. "Part of a craft that crashed in this region in 1947. "What does it do?" "It appears to manipulate fundamental forces, gravity, electromagnetism, possibly even time-space itself," Chambers explained excitedly. "It's also dangerous," Rivera interjected. "It emits unknown radiation, and it has psychological effects on those nearby." "May I?" I asked, gesturing toward the object. I leaned closer, examining the strange artifact. Up close, I could see subtle patterns flowing across its surface, like oil on water but more structured. As I watched, the patterns seemed to respond to my presence. A wave of dizziness washed over me, accompanied by a flood of fragmented images, stars seen from unfamiliar angles, landscapes that couldn't exist on Earth. I jerked back, gasping. "What the hell was that?" "It responded to you," Chambers said, eyes wide. "It establishes connections with certain individuals." Suddenly, the sound of tires on gravel froze us all in place. Headlights swept across the broken windows. "They found us," Rivera whispered. Chambers quickly returned the object to its bag and thrust it into my hands. "Take it. They won't expect you to have it." "What? No!" I tried to give it back, but he stepped away. "Ward and his people can't get this," he said urgently. "They'll weaponize it. We need to study it properly first." "Then why give it to me?" I demanded. "Because you're neutral," Rivera explained, "and because it responded to you. That's rare." Chambers scribbled an address on a scrap of paper. "Go to Nevada. Ask for Dr. Helen Chen. Tell her James sent you." They slipped out the back as car doors slammed outside. Moments later, I heard Rivera shout, "Over here!" followed by running footsteps and shouted commands. The diversion was working. They were drawing Ward's team away from the trading post. I waited until the sounds of pursuit faded, then crept to the front entrance. The area around my truck appeared clear. Clutching the bag containing the alien artifact, I made a dash for Midnight Rider. Just as I reached the driver's door, a figure stepped out from behind the truck. I froze, heart hammering in my chest. "Mr. Johnson," Ray Bigay said calmly, "I see they gave it to you." "Ray, how did you get here?" "I've been following since you left Kingman." He nodded toward the canvas bag. "That doesn't belong in their hands. Or yours." "I know," I admitted, "but I don't know what to do with it." Ray extended his hand. "I can return it to where it belongs, deep beneath the earth, where its influence can't spread." I hesitated. Chambers and Rivera had trusted me with this object, believed it was important enough to risk their lives for. But Ray's steady gaze held a wisdom that transcended scientific curiosity. In the distance, I heard shouting and what might have been a gunshot. Whatever decision I made, I needed to make it fast. "What will happen to them?" I asked, nodding toward the sounds of pursuit. "Their path is their own," Ray replied, "as yours is yours." I looked down at the canvas bag, feeling the strange vibration of the object inside. The brief connection I'd experienced with it had left me shaken, filled with images I couldn't fully comprehend. This was something beyond human understanding, perhaps beyond human control. "If I give this to you, what will you do with it?" "Take it to a place prepared by my ancestors," Ray said, "a place lined with materials that block its influence. It will be sealed away, as it was meant to be." Another shout. Closer now. Time was running out. I made my decision, handing the canvas bag to Ray. "Do what needs to be done." He nodded solemnly, accepting the burden. "Drive north for 50 miles, then return to your original route. By then, this will be over." And Chambers, Rivera, their obsession may fade once the object is gone, or it may not. Some marks on the soul don't easily heal. Ray melted into the darkness with surprising speed for a man his age. I climbed into my truck, started the engine, and pulled back onto Route 66, heading north as instructed. In my rearview mirror, I saw flashlights sweeping the area around the trading post. Ward and his men were still searching, unaware that their prize was already gone. I drove through the night, the desert stretching endlessly around me. The strange images from my brief connection with the artifact continued to flicker through my mind. Stars, distant worlds, beings unlike anything on Earth. I wondered if they would fade with time or remain as a permanent reminder of how vast and mysterious the universe truly was. 3 days later, I was back on Interstate 40, heading east with a load of electronics bound for Oklahoma City. I'd completed my delivery to Los Angeles a day late, but after explaining the situation, or a sanitized version of it, to my dispatcher, she'd been understanding. The FBI, the real FBI, had interviewed me about my encounter with Ward and his team, who turned out to be private security contractors working for Quantum Horizons. They'd overstepped their authority by impersonating federal agents, and several arrests had been made. Of Chambers and Rivera, there was no sign. They'd vanished into the desert night, their whereabouts unknown. The grad student, Marcus, had been released from the hospital but claimed to have no memory of what they'd found in the tunnel. The authorities seemed to accept his amnesia as a result of his head injury. Ray Bigay had also disappeared. When I'd tried to find his home on my return journey, locals in Kingman told me no one by that name lived in the area. The address I'd been given led to an empty lot that hadn't been developed in decades. I told the FBI nothing about the artifact. As far as they knew, the whole incident was about corporate espionage. Chambers stealing proprietary research from his former employer? It wasn't the whole truth, but it wasn't exactly a lie either. The desert stretched out around me, golden in the afternoon sun. I'd taken to avoiding the interstate when possible, preferring the quieter rhythm of the old highways. Route 66 had a different feel to me now, less nostalgic Americana, more ancient pathway hiding secrets beneath its weathered surface. My CB radio crackled to life, startling me from my thoughts. Breaker 19 for the blue Peterbilt heading eastbound near Winslow, come back. I frowned. I hadn't passed another truck for miles, and I wasn't near Winslow yet. How did they know what I was driving? Cautiously, I picked up the handset. This is Midnight Rider. Go ahead. Philip Johnson. The voice was distorted by static, but vaguely familiar. Pull over at the next turnout. We need to talk. Who is this? No response. Just dead air. Against my better judgment, I slowed as I approached a scenic overlook a few miles ahead. Part of me knew I should keep driving, return to my normal life, and forget everything that had happened. But another part, the part that had glimpsed something beyond ordinary human experience, needed closure. I pulled into the empty turnout and waited, engine idling. 5 minutes passed. 10. I was about to give up when a dusty SUV pulled in behind me. Dr. Elena Rivera stepped out, alone. She looked different, hair cut short, wearing sunglasses and clothes I couldn't imagine the academic I'd met wearing. Jeans, hiking boots, and a flannel shirt. She approached my truck cautiously. I rolled down my window. Dr. Rivera, Mr. Johnson. She glanced around nervously. Thank you for stopping. Where's Dr. Chambers? Her expression darkened. Gone. He couldn't let it go, the obsession. He's still searching, convinced there must be more fragments out there. And you. I'm trying to move on, to forget. She removed her sunglasses, revealing tired eyes. But I can't. Not completely. The things I saw, the knowledge we gained, it changes you. I nodded, understanding all too well. The brief connection I'd experienced with the artifact had left its mark on me, too. Strange dreams, moments of déjà vu, occasional flashes of those alien landscapes. What happened that night? She asked. After we led Ward away? I hesitated, then decided on honesty. I gave the artifact to Ray Bigay. He said he'd return it to where it belonged. I expected anger, but Rivera just nodded slowly. The old man knew more than he let on. Maybe it's better this way. She paused. Have you experienced any effects, visions, dreams? Some, I admitted. Nothing major. It will fade with time, she said, though she didn't sound entirely convinced. The further you are from it, the weaker the connection becomes. And Ward, his company, still looking as far as I know. But without the artifact or Chambers' complete research, they're starting from scratch. She managed a small smile. Your friend Ray did humanity a service, I think. We stood in silence for a moment, two people bound by an experience that defied explanation, that we could never fully share with others. What will you do now? I finally asked. Start over, somewhere quiet. Try to use what I learned for something positive. She reached into her pocket and handed me a small, smooth stone with strange markings carved into it. Ray asked me to give you this. Said you'd earned it. I turned the stone over in my palm, feeling a faint warmth emanating from it. What is it? A protection charm, according to him, against influences from beyond. She smiled again, more genuinely this time. Probably just a nice gesture, but after what we've seen, better safe than sorry, I finished. Rivera nodded. Safe travels, Mr. Johnson, and if you ever see lights in the sky that move in ways they shouldn't, drive the other way. With that, she returned to her SUV and drove away, leaving me alone with the desert wind and a stone that seemed to pulse gently against my palm. 1 year later, I was still driving Midnight Rider across the American heartland, still hauling freight from coast to coast. On the surface, my life had returned to normal, the rhythm of the road, the solitude of the long haul, the ever-changing landscape outside my windshield. But beneath that familiar routine, everything had changed. I saw the world differently now, with eyes that had glimpsed beyond the veil of ordinary reality. The stone Ray had sent me rested on my dashboard, a constant reminder that the universe was stranger and more mysterious than most people ever realized. I'd kept my promise to avoid Route 66 near Kingman, taking the interstate instead whenever my routes took me through Arizona. Some doors, once opened, are best left closed, but I couldn't avoid the desert entirely, nor did I want to. There was a beauty in its vast emptiness that spoke to me now in ways it hadn't before. The dogs, Samson and Highway, had found their way to me somehow, appearing at a truck stop in Flagstaff 3 months after the incident. No one claimed them, and they seemed determined to stay with me, so I'd retrofitted my cab to accommodate 2 medium-sized mutts, and they'd become my constant companions on the road. Good listeners, excellent watchdogs, and the only witnesses to my strange desert encounter who couldn't spill the beans. I never saw Dr. Chambers again, though occasionally I'd spot news items about unexplained phenomena or scientific breakthroughs that made me wonder if he was still out there, still searching. Dr. Rivera sent a postcard once from a small town in Maine. No return address, just a brief note. The dreams have stopped. Hope yours have too. They hadn't, not completely, but they'd changed from disturbing to merely thought-provoking, glimpses of possibilities, of worlds beyond our own. I'd come to see them not as a burden, but as a gift of sorts, a wider perspective. As for Ray Begay, I'd given up trying to find him. Whoever or whatever he was, he existed in a reality that intersected with mine only when necessary. But I felt his influence still, in the stone on my dashboard, in the quiet moments when the desert seemed to whisper ancient secrets. I was passing through New Mexico when I spotted them. 2 dogs barking frantically by the roadside, trying to get someone's attention. Different dogs, different road, but the scene was eerily familiar. Without hesitation, I pulled over, put on my hazards, and stepped down from the cab. Samson and Highway watched curiously from the passenger window as I approached the strays. "What's the trouble, fellas?" I asked, kneeling to their level. They circled me, then darted toward a culvert beneath the road. Following cautiously, I discovered not an alien artifact, but something far more mundane, yet no less important. A family of kittens, abandoned or lost, mewing weakly in the shade. I gathered them carefully into a box from my truck, gave the dogs some water and treats for their good deed, and continued to the next town where I found a shelter willing to take them all in. A small thing, perhaps. No world-changing discovery, no glimpse beyond the stars, just a truck driver, 2 stray dogs, and some kittens in need of help. But as I pulled back onto the highway, Samson and Highway dozing beside me, and the stone glowing warmly on my dashboard, I realized that this too was a kind of cosmic connection, the simple act of noticing, of stopping, of helping. This was what made us human. This was what mattered, regardless of what might exist in the vast reaches beyond our world. I picked up my CB radio. "Breaker 19, this is Midnight Rider eastbound on I-40. Roads clear and the stars are bright. Keep your eyes open out there, drivers. You never know what you might find." The radio crackled with responses, the familiar chatter of the highway community. I smiled, adjusting my cap and settling in for the long haul ahead. The universe might be vast and mysterious, full of wonders and terrors beyond imagination, but here on the road, in this moment, I was exactly where I needed to be. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. Some journeys don't have neat endings. But that doesn't make them any less worth taking. I glanced at the stone on my dashboard, then up at the night sky visible through my windshield. Somewhere out there, beyond the stars, something had reached across the void and touched our world. And in some small way, it had touched me too. The dogs stirred beside me, sensing my mood. I reached over to scratch behind their ears. "It's all right, boys," I told them. "Just another night on the road." But we all knew it was more than that. It would always be more than that, and I wouldn't have it any other way.